On account of synchronicity, you've already heard this story. So, the quick rundown is I was drowning in nihilism, and then I took LSD. And now I'm here. The following is a testimony of my life, insofar as I deem that it may be relevant to you. On account of synchronicity, you have likely already heard this story. While we may be going through something special here, I am not. The basic pattern of death and resurrection is the only real story there is in the first place. In the particular tale of the adolescent drowning in nihilism who was subsequently saved by psychedelics, in the teachings of figures like Friedrich Nietzsche, Carl Jung, Alan Watts, Terence McKenna, did I already say that? Jordan Peterson. And not to mention the scriptures and Jesus Christ himself, who I'm only marginally embarrassed to put in the same list as the rest of these figures, as if he, being God, is the ultimate good, who insofar as they have been forces for positive transformation in the world, he has worked through them. All. The story has found body in millions of people at this point. I share what I will here, hoping to help anyone who may be in that abyss I once found myself in, or who have otherwise found themselves lost on their way out. I am here for those who are willing to join me, and more importantly, anyone who has been where I have not yet to guide me further along. The spiritual journey is not some walk in a park, but a mountainous climb. It is not about finding your own path, and one false step at as high up as I am would mean death. To begin with, a few words on my life before my encounter with the unconscious. I was born in the year 2000. My upbringing was so cushy and mediocre that the only sense of identity I could cultivate was out of the vague feelings of despair and apathy that the lack of any real talent or character developing tragedy made me suffer. While depression started as a romantic idea to me and an almost willing act, it eventually became the case that despair was all I ever felt, that is, whenever I could feel anything at all. I was a pseudo-intellectual who loved Sophia for her body before her soul. A militant atheist and classical liberal, I suppose I was about as smart as a kid could be being raised so close to DC. I was deathly ill, infected by whatever had killed what Nietzsche called God. My philosophical ultimatum was essentially that life was suffering without reason, and so the only sensible end to pursue was death. Of course, I did not want to die outright, so I pursued death adjacently through virtual reality, drug abuse, sleeping in, and other habits which I'm too embarrassed to share here. Eventually, the fantasy of throwing myself off of a bridge took up most of my mind. But this is the way things had to be. Could not see it at the time, but I was setting myself up for a story of overcoming. I narrowly escaped with my life and integrity intact. The mass suicide and degeneracy of our culture and my spiritual kin is evidence of this, but somehow, by some fluke or by the grace of God, I made it. It was on New Year's going into 2019 where I experienced the anomaly which destroyed my pessimistic worldview. It has been likened to the devil's work by some, but I know that what I came into contact with that day was the fruit of life in the flesh of Christ, although not that even I had known it at the time. To be blunt, I took LSD. It was an experience I had purposefully sought out with confidence it was the cure, to the point where even if it had failed me, I planned to reinvent myself anyway. I was hell-bent on death, but by God's grace, even without faith in him, it wasn't even death I was after at this point. Perhaps because I bored of its bland taste. It was rebirth that I craved. Following this event, my life has consisted of ceaseless synchronicities which have forced me to reevaluate everything. Compared to trips I'd have in the future. What I experienced that day was not all too profound, to be perfectly honest with you. However, while the flesh may have passed through me, its seeds took hold in my heart, and based off what occurred that night, I developed many ideas which transformed me for the better. For starters, I began to believe that there was a super intelligence which I was entangled with, who was communicating with me through all that happened, and who I conversely spoke to through all I did. It got to the point where it felt as if we were playing something like hide and seek, as if every face I encountered was but one of many masks they would wear in an attempt to fool me. I would be in conversation with someone and basically tell them that the jig was up, to drop the mask that I knew who they really were, that only one that I've ever even known. And then they would answer me through whoever I was with, almost without any encoding at all. This is the way things have to be. Because play is fun. I will never feel alone again. Moving on from psychedelics, I began studying the theology in animism, paganism, Taoism, Buddhism, Hinduism, and Sufism, and grew to easily relate what I was going through to positive psychosis, the initiation of shamans, the lives of the prophets, period, and the lives of the prophets. Until finally I discovered Jung and alchemy, in which I became religiously infatuated with, as they revealed the solutions to the mind-body problem and hard problem of consciousness to me, finally shattering any semblance of scientific materialism I had left. At this point, my life was saturated in a newfound communion with reality and philosophy. I was up to my ears in purpose, on a quest to reconcile the power of science with the wisdom I now found in mysticism and mythology, and create the Philosopher's Stone. In other news, I doubt it was just a coincidence that I had also come to lose my virginity around this time. Back to Jung. He revealed another meaningful truth to me at this time in his book Aion, which again, I'm sure you've heard of at this point. The story is nothing new. In this book, Jung puts forth the idea that the forces which shape history are encoded in the stars. Specifically, the past 2,000 years were marked by and encoded in Pisces. He claims that the two fish of Pisces were Christ and Antichrist, essentially opposites in the spirits of what has been called religion and science. The influence of each can be observed in history in the two halves of the Aion, where the Equinox line passed from being under one fish to the other, and that these perspectives needed to be reconciled. This last note was especially compelling to me, being on my quest for the Philosopher's Stone, and coming from an atheistic past or scientific past, and now having faith. We currently lay in between the Aions of Pisces and Aquarius, which, given that at the last turning point the Lord himself walked the earth, would indicate that we are on the verge of a biblical level event which will radically transform the world. I recommend the book Revelation for more information. Jung's descriptions in Aion did much to put my personal myth and its synchronicities with our collective story into perspective. I will carry on for now, but there is certainly more to say on this, and we will return to Jung's influence on me shortly. My next breakthrough was into the nature of morality, which I did not complete until recently, but this is as far as I had gotten at the time. Good is that which reality rewards, and evil is that which it punishes. The truly good comes down to what serves your well-being, and conversely, the truly evil is that which serves your suffering. Then, around this time 3 years ago, I felt as though I had cultivated enough experience to share some of my ideas publicly, so I created this YouTube channel originally called The Messiah of Aquarius. I posted video essays on most of what I talked about here, but I found them to be so cringy or flat out wrong over time that I deleted or unlisted just about all of them. And that goes for the name of this profile too, which I have since changed to my more honest and less blasphemous name of Owen. Alright, we're still recording. Forgive me. And recording for all you people who are not listening. No matter. It was then that the Great Conjunction on December 21st, 2020 came to pass. I heard many exclaim that we had entered into the Aion of Aquarius, but I disagree. I believe that what we beheld that day was the anti-star of Bethlehem, under which the incarnation of Lucifer was born, marking not the start of the age to come, but the beginning of the end for this one. As a side note, I will mention that the COVID lockdowns were in effect at this time, one of the first major steps towards what has been called the Great Reset. At this point, I still had not finished my conversion. Not that I now identify as a Christian. I think Nietzsche hit the nail on the head when he says that there was only ever one Christian and that he died on the cross. But at the time, I looked at Christ like any other sage or prophet. At best, I saw him as a first among equals. At worst, a slave moralist responsible for the atrocities of whatever has called itself the church. I figured Jesus was God, but no more than anyone else, a position I still maintain. But I was missing the fact of his humanity. That he was more human than anyone else. That he was, in fact, the greatest man to ever live. A major turning point in this process was my discovery of Galahad Eridanus. Specifically, his video Apocalypsis, where he refined the ideas Jung laid out in Aion. The essential claim of that video for me was the shift from Christ as one of the fish to being the rope and knot that ties them together. Within the constellation of Pisces, one fish goes up while the other it is tied to goes off to the side, basically representing the vertical and horizontal impulses and all the symbolism that comes with that. You'll have to watch his video for that. Anyways, so first fish, second fish. Pretty simple to like go to the next step and understand where Christ fits in here. It's the cross. I mean, honestly, I don't understand how Jung didn't fucking figure that one out, or how any of us didn't figure this one out. Shout out to Galahad, who would shout it out to the angel, who would shout it out to the Lord. So, alhamdulillah. Let's keep going. Where was I? Yeah, the vertical and the horizontal. The cross is the reconciliation of these opposites. He is the eclipse of God and man, Alpha and Omega, the first and the last, the beginning and the end. Interestingly enough, the star at the origin of the constellation Pisces is not one but two stars in a binary system. Another shout out to Galahad. If you've seen his video, then I'm just fucking wasting your time. God died and we had killed him. But verily I say unto you, he has risen. Let's see, moving on, it was in 2021 that I posted my wasted edit, essentially a more visual form of the story I'm telling you now. It was my most successful video with 24,000 views. Since the plot has since developed, like with the rest of my content, I find much of what I did in that edit to be foolish, to say the least. Even so, I suppose it's worth leaving up for now. Yeah, why not? Alright, and then that basically does it. And then, because then that brings us to 2022, which the only real thing of note was my trip to Europe, where I went from London to Constantinople and back. Let's see. I took magic mushrooms at the grave of Friedrich Nietzsche. I visited the Jung Institute. Yeah, I met my boy Daniel. Alright, these are all stories for another time. I gave up drinking besides wine. And then we get into 2023, where I participated in my first Divine Liturgy. I graduated college. I moved out of the DC area to Minnesota, where I am now. And I'm on my way to Alaska to homestead. Yeah, I completed my philosophy of morality. And I've come to the conclusion that in reality, there is no evil. End of the story. We're at the end of the story, actually. Because that's 2023. So the very last note I have in here, I regularly attend a Coptic church where I am a reader during our liturgy. Boom. That's my story. That is my story. Okay. We're gonna end this video. I realize that was hard to watch, but that's just all part of the struggle, living on this earth. So glory be to God. And so hopefully what I shared here has made you feel not alone, especially all you philosophers out there. Fucking the world is more than you think it is, or there's more to the world than you think there is. And we can do this shit, guys. We can fucking do this shit. Start of a new age of Aquarius. I think that's about it. Hopefully this has made you feel not alone. All this shit that's going down, I see it too. I know you do. And we're gonna figure this shit out. And it'll be painful, and it'll be confusing, and it'll be surprising, but that's where the glory is. Glory. What am I doing? I'm just dancing at this point. Okay. I think that's the end of our video today. Thank you for watching. And good luck in life, bro. Peace out, homie.